What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we've got a new mercenary to talk about, and we've got a new Transformers TCG promo card to have a bit of a chat about. We don't get many promos in the Transformers trading card game, and they generally only come around at the release of a new set. Well, we have a new promo. It is Nightbird. It is a mercenary, and it is being given out to people who go to release weekend tournaments for War for Cybertron Siege 2. I've seen a bunch of questions, a weirdly large amount of questions on the Facebook group asking why this is being given out. Well, now you know. It is a Siege 2 release weekend promo, which means I'm going to need to get me to a release weekend tournament so I can get me one of these there Nightbird promos. 'Cause I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I like me some Nightbird. Now, if we start off having a little bit of a look at the stats, it's a 7 cost, so we're expecting alright stats, and we get alright stats. The health of 11 is fine. The attack of 3 or 4 is fine. The defense of 1 or 2 is a little bit low. Honestly, I would expect a tiny bit more from a 7 cost, but it's not a bad lot of stats, though the very low defense does worry me. Though I suppose I should shout out, as always here, that if you are ever worried about having a low natural defense, you might want to cheer yourselves up by playing a bit of the old erratic lightning, which will increase your attack by 3, which is phenomenal, but it lowers your defense by 1. But if you ain't got no defense, it's not a big problem. But what does it do? I mean, I adore the skills here. In bot mode, whenever this does enough attack damage to KO an enemy, use this card's bounty ability. All the mercenaries we've seen have bounty abilities, and it literally is, oh, you've knocked out a bot, you get an extra ability. And this is play an action from your opponent's scrap pile. This is phenomenal. Like, out and out phenomenal. Not only does this give you an extra action, and as far as I'm concerned, extra actions are always good, but it plays it from your opponent's scrap pile. Now, to put this into context, in the Transformers trading card game, you can either draw cards, flip them when you're attacking, or flip them while you're defending. And although there's plenty of things that can mess it around, general rule, draw 1 on your card, flip 2 while attacking, flip 2 while defending. Which means you are more likely to flip a card than you are to actually draw into it. It's the entire reason why in Wave 2 we got these green icon cards, because otherwise you would go games without ever seeing them. Green icon lets you swap a card in your hand for it at the end of the battle once you've flipped all your cards. So it's really nice in that regard. Well, here, not only do you get to play one from a scrap pile, it's actually your opponent's. So whether they drew into it and played it, you get to use it. Or flipped it attacking, you get to use it. Or flipped it defending, you get to use it. In fact, the only way you don't get to use their card is if it hasn't come out of their deck yet, or if they've drawn into it and kept it in their hand. Outside of that, you are getting to use that card, which is wonderful. And to be honest, the first one of those can be mitigated a bit, because just wait for a bit longer. Now, the way this will really be sad, if your opponent has just run out of cards in their deck. Now remember the rule in the Transformers TCG. The second you run out of cards in your deck, you shuffle your scrap pile and your scrap pile becomes your deck. Now, if your opponent does this right before you take a KO with Nightbird, it means the number of cards in their scrap pile will be significantly lower. But the thing is, this opens up so many options. And you've got to be thinking, what happens if your opponent is playing star cards? What happens if your opponent, and there aren't many people out there, alright, but what happens if they're one of the people playing Bolt of Lightning? Well, you get to just use it and drop 3 damage on one of your opponent's characters, bearing in mind that you don't have to pay the star to have it in your deck in the first place. And what's hilarious here is, your opponent might have flipped Bolt of Lightning while attacking and got no benefit from it because it doesn't have any battle icons, any pips, and yet you get to actually use the effect of the card. Now, it's a bounty effect, it's only when you take a KO, and as we talked about in previous mercenary-focused videos, it's really going to depend on the number of characters they're playing, how big and beefy they are, etc. But this could be absolutely phenomenal. Now, do bear in mind it won't work with everything, so something like a press the advantage, for argument's sake, is just not going to work so well. Yes, you can choose one of your Autobots to get +2 attack until end of turn. You can choose one of your opponent's Decepticons to get -2 defense until end of turn. But the turn ends because the bounty really happens right before your turn ends. You know, attacking is essentially ending your turn, and you get to do this when you take a KO. So it's a little bit sad. There is the possibility you've played something like All-Out Attack or Pop a Wheelie, which will allow you to have extra attacks that you can then use after playing a card from your opponent's scrap pile. But let's just say those arguments, those options are going to be few and far between. What I like even more is Alt Mode. When your opponent plays an action, they choose one of their characters and do 1 damage to it. Anytime they play an action, they take a damage on one of their characters. Well, this should be 1 damage a turn, but it's often going to be more than that. So let's say, for argument's sake, your opponent plays a Brainstorm, and there are plenty of deck lists out there that are playing Brainstorm. They play Brainstorm, take a damage, play an action, take a damage, play an action, take a damage. That's redonkulous, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely redonkulous. You know, a Brainstorm basically turns into a pseudo Bolt of Lightning. Of course, the important thing here, language-wise, is your opponent chooses a character and they take damage onto that character, so they choose where the damage actually goes. And the usual rule here that if they're playing Motormaster, they can put it on any character other than Motormaster, assuming Motormaster is in Alt Mode, of course, and then it won't do anything. Or if they're playing Captain Ironhide, they can choose to take the damage onto Captain Ironhide, and that won't do anything. So that's a little bit sad, ladies and gentlemen, but you can't win them all. Boo, hiss, etc. But this is really, really nice. Now, when you're in Alt Mode, you do get the extra attack, but you do lose 1 defense. And, of course, we've got the thing going on we have for every mercenary here, and that is to say, you want to be in 1 mode to get the bounty skill, but like here, you want to be in bot mode for the bounty skill, but you need to be in Alt Mode in order to get this attack. So that's kind of awkward. Because if you take a KO in Alt Mode, you don't get the bounty skill. But if you end your turn in bot mode having taken a KO, then you don't get the damage when your opponent plays an action. I mean, this reminds me quite a lot of Decepticon Shockwave, because that was back in Wave 1, and what Decepticon Shockwave did was that every time your opponent discarded a card from their hand, scrapped a card from their hand, they had to take an extra damage. But then you had +2 attack in Alt Mode, so if you really want to be attacking and doing lots of damage, you want to be in Alt Mode, but you kind of want to be in bot mode for your opponent's turn in case they scrap, and it gets kind of a little bit awkward. I think this is a really, really, really good card. It's actually the cheapest mercenary we've had so far, so if you want to get a mercenary on your team, good news, you totally can. And I do love both these skills. I love punishing your opponent for playing an action. I love the idea that your opponent is essentially going to be sitting there going, oh, I really want to play this action, but if I play this action, I'm then going to have to take a damage, and I don't want to take a damage, grr, etc. And I like the idea of being able to play an extra action, but play it from your opponent's scrap pile, so you can actually be playing cards that you might want to play in your deck, but didn't, and then you get to play them anyway. This is one of the most interesting cards we've had, and it is a promo, and I like it because I think it might legitimately be a good playable promo. I think this might be one of those promos that we actually see getting into decks. Now, there's going to be a bunch of people out there that are upset that we've got a playable promo, that would rather it wasn't, but all I can say to those lovely ladies and gentlemen is, get to a release weekend tournament, and it won't be a problem. For now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think about Nightbird, so please be kind enough to let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at the Wossy, where we talk about Transformers and any other game that takes my fancy. And do please consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get weekly bonus podcasts, and so on. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.